Once again, good morning to you all. It's great to tie up with YAL IT and to organize this as part of the Northern Cluster Activation Roadmap, and part of the roadmap, and as part of the roadshow, which is taking place right now. We started yesterday and first had sessions with government stakeholders and had a launch of the Gen Z chapter of CSSL Computer Society of Sri Lanka at the University of Jaffna yesterday. And today we have parallel sessions going on. At right now, there's another session which will start at 9:30 with Northern Chamber of IT for more SME and more mature companies. And after that, we have a session at 11 o'clock on tech diffusion, where the CEO of equivalent to Slim Tech, it's called Slim Tech, Sri Lanka Institute of Biotechnology, who's going to talk at 11 a.m. And we have some of the main sessions in the evening where all the telco operators will be speaking to us. And I was really glad to hear yesterday the telco operators, all the telco CEOs was talking about all the various options they are going to give startups and the special packages they are going to give startups, and that was very encouraging. And I'm sure they will tie up with YAL IT to source or provide the list to the startups which are registered. It's a great opportunity. So Sayantan will join at about 9:15, and I said I'll start off with a few slides of introduction. So I want to share something which we all of us are very happy about, which is the progress of the startup ecosystem in the country. And let me just take you there quickly. So all of us are working towards a startup nation, and this is will become a reality, will become in 2024, and you will see why in terms of the things that have been put forward. We are looking towards having an ecosystem of 1,000 startups, an ecosystem of 1,000 startups. Currently, we have about 500, close to 550 registered on the national platform Startup SL. And I'm happy to say that this journey started off before, more than a decade before. And you'll see who were the starting points in my chronological timeline, where YAL Geek Challenge and Spiralation was one of the first programs in the country to spur entrepreneurship from over a decade before. And with this journey, both Spiralation, both YAL Geek Challenge has evolved and have been kept going for almost 11 years now. And that's something all of us could be really, really happy about. And you will see, and today you will see some of those successful companies that have come out of the programs. So this journey of 10 years have seen many different entities supporting the startup community, which will be something we can be very happy about. There are corporates who are coming and supporting startups. There are community groups like those who run the Techstar Startup Weekend. You all would know Sharanyan Sharma, who and Tavaruban, who started the first startup weekend. The first startup weekend in the country was in Jaffna. It was at Tilco Hotel. I was there, and 4 days, and that was a very happy occasion for all of us. So from that point onwards, there have been 18 startup weekends which have been organized by community builders like Sharanyan, like Tava, like Kanishka Viramunda. ICTA has got involved in every startup weekend all throughout. There were startup weekends for women which were organized. So this community has grown from strength to strength throughout this decade, and that's something. Global Startup Ecosystem Report, which is like the ranking, which is the ecosystem report which ranks ecosystems in the world, has placed now and recognized Sri Lanka, and will be recognizing us again in the report 2020. This is from 2020. Again, it will be recognizing us in 2021. But I would like to say we have seen a growth of our ecosystem value. So ecosystem value means the amount of funding that we have brought into the country through investment. We have grown 4x. We have grown 4 times, and that's something we can be very happy about. We have seen investment into startups also growing by this number that you see on the bottom right hand, which is the funding growth index. We have seen that growing. So these are great steps taken by a small ecosystem like us, which we are growing. And another highlight is that the national platform Startup SL, which was started with community, with government and community coming together, saw an increase of from 32 startups, which were registered at the initiation of this in 2019, and now we have 546 listed tech-based startups in this in our platform. Some of them are at ideation stage. I know during this round of spiralation, we had 15 companies applying for spiralation. All of them are registered at ideation stage, which we need to support. Some of at traction stage, and some of them who are break even and beyond, who are earning revenue. At least 50% of them are earning revenue, startups which are earning revenue, which is on this platform. It's something very we should be happy about. Here is the regional distribution. Northern province have 31 startups already registered on Startup SL. As I mentioned, we had 15 who applied for spiralation, all registered, and much more than that. And from that, we know 11 of them have already registered at the register of companies that are running as private limited. And this is something, this is the progress that we've seen. Just during the past 4 years, we had seen growth of year-on-year growth of more than 20% of startups registering at the ROC. And these are the numbers for a community of 500 plus startups. This is really good, and we are growing year on year, and we are making our presence felt, making our presence known as a tech startup community in the country. We are making that presence known. Not only we are expanding from services, products. We are expanding into various industries like education, agri-tech, as you see in these numbers. Just see the numbers, the last 3 in the table. 70 who are in the edu-tech space, 36 in the agri-tech, 14 in the med-tech space. Something again that we can be very happy about. And across various verticals, as I mentioned, we have companies who are developing drone technologies. We have one in spiralation this year as well. We have companies who are like our well-loved Sense Agro, who has been recognized in the world for its agriculture technologies, and which we are very happy about. So our ecosystem is growing from strength to strength. And it's because of this network of various entities. You'll see YAL IT Hub here. The connections between the various entities, the sharing of knowledge, supporting each other, and growing from strength to strength. I remember Santan and I first met at a career guidance program, which was held in Jaffna. That was my first project in 2010 when I joined ICTA, and we did it at Wambadi School. We had 5,500 children being brought in, and we came in a bus from Colombo. We had many career guidance counselors, and Santan was one, and that was when I would say our friendship started. And it has been a journey throughout, a relationship which was being formed. And I was also happy to say that YAL IT has never requested, I would say, any financial support from ICTA, apart from a lot of other organizations which have worked with us. It has always been sustainable, have worked with the investment community, worked with the diaspora, and have come a long way, which I'm very, very proud about. So many other stakeholders in our ecosystem is there to support and is supporting co-working spaces coming out. You have Hatch Kalam there in the northern province, and there is another business center being discussed by the Ministry of Home Affairs, which we had extensive discussions during last year and the year before, yet not seen light of day, but hopefully it will come and it will support the community. And with the university, we had a session yesterday, and I've mentioned that we'll be running a ranking program across universities in the country, ranking them for their ecosystem that they have built for entrepreneurs inside the university, because we'll be launching a framework with them, and so good things happening there. Our ecosystem is well connected with various international parties. We still have a long way to go, but we are connected. We have various innovation funds which are investing in startups in Sri Lanka. Even recently, you will have seen in the papers, the Lion Ventures have working with another partner in Sri Lanka, and we are getting the investor interest. While the startup ecosystem is doing well in those areas, we still do have a few challenges because of our currency rate falling down and some of our debt, where we have curtailed or have few challenges in taking money out right now. But again, I should emphasize that it's the startups that can make a difference, that can bring this export revenue to this country and take us as a country out of this debt trap. So one of the things that ICTA has been working on during the last year with our collaboration of all stakeholders, including YALIT, was first positioning us in the startup genome report, and we have done an extensive assessment, understanding it. Plus, also working with PwC, we are working on removing barriers that the startups are facing in the country. So yesterday, I was able to talk to the government officials in the northern region, including Mr. Mahesan, the GA of Jaffna, where I told them about that we have to make the registration of companies an easier process. We'll have to try to look at digitizing it and providing this necessary approvals through the government, which is required. Currently, we are working with 14 authorities to remove these impediment categories that we have looked at here. We have identified 29 challenges that startups face, which these authorities are responsible for. So we are working with them, these 14 authorities, very closely to make them startup friendly. And our vision is to become a startup friendly government, which you will get to know as an event or a press conference next week also, in getting this information out there, the work that is being done. We have worked with Startup Genome, as I mentioned, the global ranking agency. They have told us that these are the three main areas that we should focus on: growing number of startups, increasing the startup quality, and increasing early stage funding. And all of these areas are worked out by YALIT and the YALIT Accelerator, all of these areas. And together, we will help our ecosystem become a thousand strong ecosystem. And without stopping there, we have to help the startups. We have to help you go through this funnel. So this is a funnel which is being created, inspiration, and then a campaign which we'll be launching called 10,000 Ideas, which will help across the universities. And we want to grow the of startup through this funnel by 5x. We are working with universities and educational institutes and schools to do that. So with 1,000 startups being there in 2024, at least 700 who are earning revenue and scale up. So scale ups would mean those who earn more than $100,000 a year, more than $100,000 of recurrent revenue per year. So this is a challenge, but we also have the hope because of a community relationship that we have with each other, and various work being done, various initiations that you see at the bottom, done by various stakeholders of the ecosystem, which will help us achieve these numbers. And finally, to become a startup nation which goes across regions, a positive impact, a government who is and law and policies which are startup and investor friendly, an education system which is entrepreneurial, and therefore with all that we'll have globally recognized tech startups like Root Code Labs, like QX, like Boardpack in our country, more and more of them, so that we will be known as ecosystem, as a Sri Lankan startup ecosystem, connected to other ecosystems. Even right now, we are connected to the European Union, Sri Lanka Innovation Partnerships, and YALIT was invited to be part of it, and we'll be having more interactions with European incubators. I'm sure you already have such interactions with US-based incubators and others. So growing the ecosystem, and that's where we would want to get to. So with that introduction, you can always write to us on this email address. I would like to welcome and hand over to Sayanthan to give us short introduction of for the benefit of others who have joined who don't know YAL IT or the work that it's been done. Short introduction of YAL IT. Once again, Sayanthan, thank you for partnering with ICTA, and together we have 41 people on this call. That's really great. So over to you.
All right, super. So first of all, thanks Sachindra and the ICTA team for putting this together, for organizing this, focused on the Northern Province. So we had, from our perspective, we had two main objectives coming out of this program. One was to get the insights, as you mentioned, on what ICTA is up to and the opportunities that the startups can leverage by accessing ICTA. We have had startups from the community who's been part of Spiralation, which is a grant plus like the technical assistance or the accelerate the learning process that they go through as part of acceleration that happens with it. So we've had that, and I wish that more startups from here would get that same access, and this is a good opportunity for them to connect and understand those intricacies of those as well. So I suppose that that's going to be a very good opening, and also to see the larger picture that the ICTA is working towards, and put a face to the names of you guys as well in front of the community. Ideally, we would have loved to have it in person so that they would have had some conversations, but COVID has put a stop to that. Secondly, it's also to get an opportunity for the startups in the community to get inspired by the work of the other startups who are at different scales. Some are scale-up startups, which are going to be speaking today. I know I'll let them kind of speak about that. But the whole purpose of that is to inspire the startups to think and operate. And to give a little bit of a heads up on the activities that YAL IT Hub does, we are a community. We've been in operation for the last 10 years now. Our focus is to build the Jaffna into an innovation hub, or the Northern Province into an innovation hub. That's our focus, and that's what we have been striving for. And as part of that, we run YAL Geek Challenge, which is run at two levels, the senior and the junior. The senior is basically an entrepreneurship competition. Applications for this year's senior will open up in July. So that's next month. We will have, during the course of next month, we'll open up for applications. And then we will have the finale by October, November timeframe, where startups goes through a lot of learning process and also an opportunity to network and pitch in front of a global panel of entrepreneurs and successful entrepreneurs and high net worth individuals. So that's what will happen as part of YAL Geek Challenge. Today is actually a busy day for YAL IT Hub, because parallelly to this, we are running YAL Geek Challenge Junior Zonals. So that's what's currently happening. So I had to jump into that call and then come back here in today. But that's where we get the school children to build innovations and showcase what they do as well. So the school children are always very inspirational for us, and you can see, or we have discovered child prodigies every year on YAL Geek Challenge. So that's happening today. And then we have YAL YGC Accelerator. Today we are running the third cohort, and a lot of teams I can see from the YGC Accelerator today on this call as well. So these are startups who are trying to accelerate and kind of expand their business further. So I wish more of them get the opportunity to be part of Spiralation and other such programs where they can tap into those opportunities as well. So that's my wish for them. And then one of the most important things we run is Uki, which is a coding school, where we take in children who has not got into the university, equip them with the skills needed by the industry, and also they work on a project, and they either they become interns at the companies, or they go on to become founders of their own companies. Some of these founders are already on this call as well, where they've gone from Uki to become founders. They run their own companies today. So those are the major initiatives that we run at YAL IT Hub, just to give like an overview of what we do. We do a lot of experiments, some work, some don't, but we just keep on experiment to see how we can take and allow the community to work with technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship. So that's what we do in short. Thanks, Sachindra, for the opportunity, and thanks for doing this today.
Thanks a lot, Santhan, and thank you for having multiple parallel events and putting that extra effort to have this as well. This came, I think, about 2 weeks back when you guys have already planned. Because of the roadshow being planned, the dates were kind of fixed. Thank you for that support provided by everyone, Sayantan and everyone at YAL IT. So, okay, we'll get the ball rolling. The most important people on this call today are growth stories and the storytellers behind it. So how we will take this forward is we will have Lakmini and then Alahan and Gobi talking and sharing their stories with us. And then after that, we will have a small Q&A session. Please do write in your questions. I will ask them from the speakers. You can ask them directly as well. And I also definitely will have a few questions to ask them. Some of these stories are coming out for the first time. So you're the first audience to listen to this. I also feel very privileged and very excited. So I will start my trap and now hand over to Lakmini to start off.
So thanks very much, Sachindra, and YAL IT and ICTA. It's great to be here. Let me just put on the slide deck. So I'm really glad to share these stories, and thanks for the opportunity. So let me jump into it straight away. So starting, I thought I'll start right from the start, like why, what motivated me? And that's an interesting story really, because it's a journey as well. Because when we start up, before we start up, as you all know, we don't really know what a startup is all about and what it can do, the power of it. So I put up this screen, which is kind of where we are now. But certainly when we started, or when I thought of starting ideation time, it's a dream, right? Because we don't really know where we are going. It could just stop at its feet in a week, or it could go on. So, I mean, there's so many things to throw around. For example, like I hear of people saying, I got this fabulous idea. That's not what happened to me. I mean, you want to get rich, you want to be in the top 10. Lots of these things eventually happened, but I would really say that freedom to push my boundaries. I started out working in a couple of companies, and I just felt the local companies were just focused on local work. It's fantastic, right? Even a telco is fantastic. I'm not saying it's not good enough, but I wanted more. And that's simply it. And I just wanted to see whether I could do it. And some of my friends at that time gave me some opportunities to see what's out there. I mean, I traveled to the US at a time that there was some .com boom happening. And I just felt, my God, I mean, like when I go back, I got to do something different. So that's very simple. That's how it started. But of course, as we grew and when some of these products and things started maturing, I realized, you know, I could do a lot more. I mean, today I'm in this session because I'm involved with Sachindra and them who are building the nation. And it's great to be part of it. I never thought that would be part of my goal, but today it is. We certainly want to be a top 10 global company in my category, the categories we're working in. That's a real thing. And that also is because we've grown to that level now, but not from the start. So I just wanted to share that because when I was starting up, I was also like thinking, how do these large companies have these large goals? And just to tell you that it doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual process. So so how did I do this? So essentially we bootstrapped. I mean, I know that the ecosystem today has so much like LAN, Spiralation, Disrupt Asia, all this funding, mentoring, all that is there. So y'all are really, really lucky. But when I started, like almost like now, if you take boat back, it's about 7-8 years ago. We didn't really have that. We didn't have that access. So today I have like 3 successful products, several successful, unsuccessful things that we had to go past and pivot to build these things. And we bootstrapped. We bootstrapped with services projects. We still have a services arm doing US and foreign projects. So that pretty much earned extra money for us to start putting extra teams to build these innovations. So, I mean, essentially, it's all a journey. Like without the services, we couldn't have built this. So many of you might start with services. Many of you may continue to work with services, and that's totally, I mean, that's great. Whatever it is, it helps our nation, right? So talking about a board pack specifically, since it's a limited time, the most important thing, I guess, was the market fit. Uh, the project, because we were doing services, Nations Trust invited us to have a go at building this board meeting automation. It's a B2B solution for their board members. As you know, like Nations Trust Bank is a very large bank with thousands of people, but the board is like 10 people. The executive committee is another 15 people. This is the topmost ranking people in that organization. We had a go at it. It was only on iPad at that time. That's a services project. That's about all it was. But immediately we sort of noticed that all banks might like this in the local market, Sri Lankan market. And this started moving. So I'll take you to the next slide. There again, the matter is that we were under a lot of pressure, because when we put this out, and I mean, even some of my partners internationally, I remember having chats where they sort of said, just give it generic, give it for project meetings. There's like 2,000 people in projects. Why are you giving this to like the 50 people at the top only? The volume is not enough. So I've had conversations where they've threatened to pull out, but I stuck on because we had to be different. Like if we were just a generic meeting solution, and I'm sharing this because this may apply to your industry as well. If you're generic, you're going to be with competitors, large ones as well, like Microsoft, Google Hangout, Zoom. All this is for generic. But so my conversation to them was, if you want the best board meeting solution for the banks, this is the actual conversation in Malaysia. To the top banks in Malaysia, you got to use BoardPack. But if you want to give project meetings, I'll give you a vendor. I mean, maybe you can use, at that time, it was SharePoint. I'll give you a good SharePoint vendor. In fact, we have a SharePoint division. I'll get you some people from there, but it will be very ordinary. So that conversation actually helped me to establish that we are, I mean, literally we are like the best. We are the number one. We can be, because it's a niche area, right? So this was an important point also for our success. And I found this quote from Jeff Bezos of Amazon. He said that, I believe if you have to be willing to be misunderstood if you're going to innovate. I mean, this is really a case, because not only partners, not only clients, but even my own business partners used to ask me, so Lucky, like, what's the big deal? I mean, there's like, what's the big deal about meetings, like board meeting solution? So we had to fight this out. And even I had to, sometimes we don't know the answer. We don't know why we are successful at the beginning, but we know that the clients like us better than anybody else. So I mean, as the founder, as the people who are starting, we have to trust ourselves. And if we dither, our whole team dithers. If we go generic, that's it. That's the end of that whole situation. So these were some of the learnings I had, and I practiced this in my new products. I'm putting this slide up, and I'm sure you all see this, Maxis. This was our first international venture. So I'll share the story on that. It's, again, fairly a simple one. Sri Lanka, first the banks took us. Then we got an opening with Sri Lanka Telecom. As you know, Sri Lanka Telecom has a big investment from Maxis, which is the largest Malaysian telco. And we were at that board meeting, and Mr. Sandeep Das, I got his picture here. He was like, right, I was standing and presenting, and we used to present ourselves those days. And Mr. Sandeep Das, I still remember, he was asking a lot of questions. And then he just like looked back and said, do you all have a Malaysian partner? And like immediately my answer was no, but we'd love to have you all as one. I mean, I didn't even think, it just came out. And that's the mentality we had then, and we still have it now. Just jump at any opportunity. So the next week, we were there in Malaysia. And in fact, on the way, I remember with Rajita, my CWO, who's still my CWO, in the flight, I was just telling Rajita, I mean, we must be crazy, right? Because this solution still doesn't have the annotation. It's in its first version. It's not fully tested. Barely NTB is using it. This is really scary. And then, I mean, we walk into like Maxis. It's a very large organization. And we are thinking we're going to get completely battered. So I'll take a little time to share this story. I've also put this picture of Suren Amarasekara. He was the CEO of Mobitel before that. And if you remember, we were doing a lot of services projects. We were working night and day to make Sri Lankan companies happy. And suddenly Suren walked in from the boardroom and said, "Oh, Lakmini, I'm so glad you're the vendor. I didn't know it was y'all." And my God, all my fears just went away, because this was a friendly face in a senior position that trusted us. So on that point, then suddenly he took me to a side and he said, "Okay, so that's Mahathir Mohamad's son. Those are the Saudi directors." And he gave me a lot of advice and took me to the chairman and said, "Sir, this is one of my most trusted vendors from Sri Lanka. You don't have to worry about anything. That's it." So just to share that everything we do matters. Our relationship takes that form. So people turn up, and especially Sri Lankans. I've had Sri Lankans helping me in almost every country. So again, I mean, Richard Branson says, if somebody offers you opportunity, but you are not sure you can do it, just say yes. So this is, I mean, as a founder, I'm sure you're doing it already. This is our life, because you don't get a chance to learn something before you get the opportunity. You have to learn on the go. So after the confidence built with Malaysia, we just went rolling on. So BSC was our first customer in India. Again, I don't really have much time to talk about all the details, but again, a Sri Lankan connection, Colombo Stock Exchange, because we are doing ATRAD, introduced us. None of this is easy. I mean, it took a lot of effort and convincing, even if we had good introductions, but the introduction is so important. Once you get a little foot in, you don't give up. You just squeeze your way in, right? So that was as you can see, we didn't go to small clients. We went to the biggest. And that's our motto, and that's our success. So similarly, I mean, I'm saying this magic number is 3 years. This is kind of a very ironic, interesting thing. We always found that it took us about 3 years, we are B2B, to mature a region. So sometimes at the early stages, I used to go to like Indonesia or Philippines and expect things to happen within 6 to 12 months. And we used to exit as well, thinking it's not a good market. But we found that if we stuck out for 3 years, it's a magic number. It worked. Sometimes we had to change people, we had to change partners. It's a lot of hardship in that 3 years, but it manifested. So Vodacom is the largest telco in South Africa. In fact, across Africa, they have a lot of good presence. We get more than 50% of our orders through this. I say this quite casually, but there's a lot of work behind it to get this done. But these partnerships that we formed, these have been a successful approach, let's say. And then we've gradually, from the garage that I started years back, we've moved from office to office, larger and larger. And I'm really glad to say now we're at the EDB, the HPL building in Navamma. In fact, we have 2 offices now in Parkland as well. So this is one of the offices, a little picture with great views all around it. We call it the Colombo Innovation Center. As I mentioned, we always shoot at the top. So in these regions, like I have mentioned Malaysia, I have mentioned India, I have mentioned South Africa, we are across 40 countries now. Some of the markets are bigger than the others. We just shoot for the top. So if you take any country, we've got like the top clients, like we've got Fortune 500 clients, we've got Forbes 2000 clients. If you take, let's say, Singapore, OCBC Group is the biggest. I mean, it's a Forbes 2000 company. It's right at the top. Great Eastern. Petronas is the largest, I think even from a world point, it's one of the largest oil companies. Mercedes-Benz, even in India, we got the Central Bank of India, RBI. I mean, you'd think that only Indians can get Indian projects like that. We get lots of government projects. So essentially, nothing is impossible, really, if the market fit is there. So as I took this slide to show you that the customers too are not just ordinary customers. They're, I mean, if you take a company with 50,000 people, this is that top 5, top 10, the leaders of those very, very large organizations. And I think in Malaysia, even the Prime Minister uses BoardPack. As we grew, I mean, now the teams are large, and in every country we have quite a substantial presence of their own local people. So, for example, South Africans or Chinese people in Singapore or Malaysia and things, Australians, etc. But of course, this was a growth path. Like initially, it was Malaysia. We put a couple of people there. As I said, we were bootstrapping. So the money we get from projects, we put back. But I must say, like today, that doesn't need to happen. There's a lot of funding. So you can grow faster than what we did. My motto always, I mean, I put this slide, I also put Northern Province because we are centralizing today the Northern Province in this conversation. The market gets bigger and bigger. So once you have a good market fit, I mean, I really recommend whatever you're doing to see what can we do globally. I'm not saying that you need to go global immediately. I mean, we also took certain steps, but I mean, certain products will have Sri Lankan demand. Certain products that are global won't have Sri Lankan demand. But I mean, anything I do, I look at global now. Whether Sri Lankan demand is there or not, my goal is global. So we find ways to find globally required demand. And as you can see, like there are only 21 million people. Then Asia itself has over half the population. If you look at stats, Asia really has over half the population in the world. So that's like 2,000 times people. And the globe, obviously, 8 billion. So you can imagine how your company can grow if you just open up the market without struggling to sell to just 270 listed companies. So as I mentioned, our clients span across 40 countries now. And basically in our category, we are basically targeting to be the category leader of board automation. And it's happened. It's happened in some of the markets. Like Asia, there is no other player globally, not even the US players, who are as strong as us. And again, as I mentioned, it's not been easy. I mean, especially starting out, even going to Malaysia, going to South Africa, it's been ups and downs. We get things, we lose things, we get things, we lose a lot of money, we get the wrong people. But then you get on a path of scale up, and it somewhat gets a little easier. And again, I love this quote from Elon Musk, because he says, if things aren't failing, you are not innovating enough. So this is kind of my motto. So if things get a little smooth, I know that we've relaxed. That means we've flattened. So we break things a little and we keep moving. So that's how we've grown as well. And this comes to, so that was my story. And this comes to an interesting area, that a realization that has happened somewhat recently, last couple of years. It's the fact that the question is, can you build the next Apple or Google acquisition? It's a cliche question, but it has a lot of meaning, because right now, when I look around, when I Google, these technologies are the ones that are getting the funding and acquisition. So if we do old technology, yes, we can get funding, but if we do any of these technologies, The funding is out there. They're waiting to give great ideas the chance. So in our case, I'll read some of this out. Like, so AI and machine learning, blockchain, those are fairly standard. But ESG, which is the Environment Society Governance, GRC, which is governance, risk and compliance, those are things that are quite special. And we found them out, during the last year. And as I mentioned, even if you Google, you'll see that India, Singapore, these Asian regions are getting a lot of funding and acquisitions for tens and hundreds of millions by the big players, because these are new technologies with a lot of innovation are unraveled still. And we can, being in Sri Lanka, I think Sachindra, as he mentioned, the funding is increasing. And this is an opportunity that we have. And I just wanted to tell you that our companies, our products are seriously looking at this. We are putting this into our roadmaps and R&D. And this is going to be almost like a 50% of our growth moving on. We've already started working with some of the universities on AI/ML. I didn't talk much about ATRAD, but ATRAD pretty much is having a 70% market share in Sri Lanka on trading. So if you're having a trading account, stock trading, you're likely to be using our product of Iron One. And we're going to do this simulations, forecasting, many things related to artificial intelligence and this ranking of companies. I'm just sharing some of the details that we are doing, but in your industry, I would say don't go to like just generic e-commerce or generic whatever. Try to use some of this. I am sure that you never know, Apple, Google, Uber, Facebook, they're watching, right? So essentially, yes, we can. And this sort of comes to the end of my conversation today. And I'm sharing some of these names of books as well, especially 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. It has helped me to have this number one mindset. It's worth a read. I'm sure it's available that you can get your hands on. And of course, Simon Sinek, I'm sure you've heard of him. Those books have really helped me to have very clear ambition. And I know, and this is my journey, that in Sri Lanka, there is no limit. It's only a mindset. So I think in the next couple of years, if we can have some of these great top innovations coming out, that would be so great. So thank you so much. And that sort of ends my talk, Sachindra. I hope I took the adequate time.
You're on the dot.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, thank you.
And that was how I was telling Navindri that I got goosebumps when I was listening. It's so, I've never heard this growth story before of Boatpack, and that was amazing. And I've noted down a few things, and I hope others who are on the call are also noting down a few things, points that I've given, and especially inspiration and our ambition to build the next company which will be acquired by the likes of Google, Microsoft, or those big giants. That's a real something to think about. So this entire today, what we're starting is called the growth series, and we're just starting it with this particular event and having growth stories of local companies being shared, especially to inspire ambition to grow and become $1 million revenue earning companies, and to go even beyond that. And that's what Sri Lanka needs. So next up, I would give the podium to my good friend Alhan, also known as, I won't say that, to share his growth story with us. Thank you, Alhan, for coming on board and be willing to share your story. Over to you.
Thank you, Sachi. And so Sachi has told me to tell a lot of stories and then show a lot of images. So I'm going to try and do a sort of a storytelling through images. And that's going to be, I hope it's going to be fun for most of you. So So the interesting part is we all know that building a business is not easy, right? That's why there are very less people do that. That's why people burn out when they are entrepreneurs. That is exactly why everybody chooses to work somewhere than building something. Because when companies are a startup, because nobody becomes, like a big company all of a sudden. When companies are a startup, they fail for multiple reasons. And then, in fact, a recent survey says 90% of the startups fail, and I've been there. And they fail for multiple reasons. So this is just, there is a hassle, there is a pain in building a startup itself. And now trying to go global and sell global, to be specific, is very painful. It's the most exhausting thing I have done in my life, and I've done a lot of painful things. So when Sachindra asked me, okay, Alagan, I want you to speak about something very different this time. We all know your story, and most of the people, especially the northern startups, have heard my story. And can you touch into something that what made you go global, and how you became what you are? I don't believe that we have reached our potential. I think we have reached probably like about 2 to 3% of what we could do globally. But I'm trying to share, like, from the start, what exactly made me this, because it's a bit of a surprise. I mean, I shouldn't have gone global. Like, I don't deserve to go global. I don't deserve to. I shouldn't be running a company like this at this time, because it's impossible in many levels. Like, I don't come from a business family. I don't come from a rich family to start with. I come from a family. Most of the Jaffna families, that they value education. They say, like, money is nothing. There's a famous saying in Tamil, "Kaase na kaase, nayin dinna kaase." What is money? Even a dog can't eat money when it's hungry. So I come from that background. So building a business for me itself is like out of my league, in other terms. And then going global was completely out of my league, because I spent my best young age in Jaffna as a small kid, studying in a government school till I finished my A-levels. And then only I moved to Colombo for my bachelor's, and then I started doing multiple things. So when I look at how exactly it moved, I broke it down to 3 phases, and I hope it's going to be fun. So the first phase, I think, that happened to me was the first global exposure I got, without even realizing that's going to change my life. By looking at it objectively, it might look like something very small, like something just arbitrarily happened. But it turned out to be a life-defining experience, and then it kind of transformed into many. So when I was a first-year student in SLIIT, of course, I didn't want to just, do the normal degree and then just, go back home for vacation and, pluck mangoes and then play with friends. That wasn't what I was excited about. So I was excited about these internships. So when I heard the term internship, and when somebody told me that you don't have to have a degree or you don't have to have the experience, like, if you pitch yourself to be smart enough to catch up on something and add value to an organization, people are going to give you the chance. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. So this is amazing. So then I started annoying a lot of people. Like, I'm like a first-year student, like barely knows to code. And then I was way too ambitious, and I would go into open source projects internationally, and I would try to contribute, like try to find some bugs, try to find open tickets, and then contribute, and then start sending emails to team leads, to professors, to CEOs. Hey, I just fixed something. Is it useful? Hope it's useful, and then try to build a network. And one thing led to another, and before I could realize, I managed to convince Professor Lal in Thailand to give me an internship. to give me a 2 months internship, unpaid. They didn't pay nothing. I told him, sir, you don't have to pay me anything. You don't even have to give me anything. I was teaching physics at that time, so I was saving money aggressively. So I said, I have enough money. What I meant by enough was like 28,000 for up and down flight ticket to Thailand. Just give me a place to sleep. Give me a room to sleep in the university somewhere, or close to your office. That would be enough. And then he graciously offered me somewhat of a kind of an abandoned staff quarters, and then I went in and cleaned the stuff up and started working. So this was my first desk. So I was an intern at Geoinformatics Center in Thailand, in AIT, inside the Asian Institute of Technology. And it kind of opened a lot of things in my mind. I started realizing the scale of things people were working on. When I went to Geoinformatics Center, I realized that people program the receivers on satellite from there. Like the guy sitting next to my desk was creating a preventive algorithm to detect forest fires through satellites. And that kind of gave me a great, ambition to start looking bigger and start thinking bigger. And I didn't settle there. I did a good internship there. I worked day and night, and then Professor Al still calls me like, how were you like an animal there, like working like 18, 20 hours? And I was like, I got 2 months and I got to prove myself. Like if I win this, I mean, I'm sure there would be more to come. And yes, indeed, more came. I was offered a paid internship the next semester, and then I went there, spent a bit more time. And once Professor Lal introduced me to some of the University of Tokyo professors in a workshop and said, Sensei, this is Alagan, a young guy from Sri Lanka. He has done internship with us. Lovely guy, see if you can do something with him. And like Lakmini said, like when people refer you, it becomes a huge asset. And Mogi Sensei gave me a research student position the next year in Tokyo. So now I'm in different countries that are not to be, literally with no money, no backing. Even my family was like, okay, so why are you going? But it was fascinating for because ignore the Chumpan, these guys are the most active vendors. I was so excited because I was getting to see some crazy interesting things being built. I was being exposed to things that were way out of my capacity at the time as a young fellow to think. And then things led to another. I was again way too ambitious and applied for a Google Student Ambassador position. And they were like, cool, I mean, I think you got it. So here you go, you become a Google Student Ambassador. Then they took me around the world. I went for many conferences. I went for many trainings by Google. And this I consider as the start of my international exposure. And that exposure kind of changed the way my brain works. And it completely changed the way I would look at a problem. It's completely changed the way I would look at walls, saying there's no way you can grow out of this. And it also made me realize the amount of money that's out there. It also made me realize the amount of opportunities out there internationally. Like Lakmini said, it also made me realize that we are just a bunch of 21 million people, like in a country that's barely a dot in the world map. So this I consider as my first phase. Now let's move on to the second phase. The second phase I call as my cultural upgrading or cultural learning. This is a fascinating phase because when I was about to start my final year bachelor's in college, I again got over ambitious and started a company. I've done internships, I've done this and that. Somebody came to me, buddy, shall we build an app? Do you want a partner? And I said, hooray, yes. I've nothing better to do in my life. Let me start this up. So I started a company. I'm a student already. And I have a small team who is working things here and there. And then we named the app Singify. So it's like an AI karaoke app. Some of you might have heard it. It was a lot popular in the mid like 2015. at the time. But then there was something that I realized when I was trying to sell this internationally, when I was trying to work with customers, potential partners, and many others internationally, I realized there is a huge cultural gap that I have as a young kid from Sri Lanka or from an Asian country. And I realized that whatever I do, however capable I am in terms of technology or whatever I do, I still need to bridge that cultural understanding. My brain needs to grow to a point where I start thinking like a global citizen, not a Sri Lankan citizen. I felt like my brain needed to grow into a point where I can relate to somebody from Southeast Asia and somebody from Europe and somebody from North America. And I can't go and do internships or do other things again, because I'm a young founder trying to build an app. So then what I did was I started to save up time as much as I can by working probably like 16, 18 hours and then saving up a week every 6 months. And I started traveling. So this cultural phase of what transformed me into the cultural understanding, I was one of the poorest travelers you could see outside. I would book the cheapest flight ticket possible. Sometimes you wouldn't even have luggage and I'll carry the luggage. Sometimes I would wear five t-shirts on top of each other because I wouldn't have the luggage weight to put them into the carry-on. And I would, keep traveling into different places, understanding culture, understanding the way those countries work. Like, for example, countries like Indonesia completely baffle me into the growth of the size and the growth of what they have had. And many countries in the Europe completely makes me feel like, we are far behind in the way we adapt to technology. So I travel, I meet a lot of friends, I meet a lot of people from all around the world, and then I would have conversations with them. So how is your country? How are your startups doing? How are your businesses adapting to the modern age? How is technology in terms of penetration in your countries? And I have made a lot of friends. Many of them turned out to be great advisors, cultural advisors into their country. And many of the travelers, some of them might be, very, very much off track. Some of them might be even into the mountains. All of them made me understand the economy of every single country. And all of them made me collect a great set of trustworthy friends and advisors who could help me in the future when the business starts growing to scale up into many countries. So when I land in a country, I'll always have somebody whom I can have a drink with, and who would help me, penetrate into the market or find customers or find connections. So this second phase is a little subtle, little not really relevant. It might look like it's not really relevant to business, but I gotta tell you, it played a major part in what I have become. And my last and the third phase is the longest phase, which we have been doing for the longest time, is you can't sell globally by sitting down in your country. If you want to sell globally, you gotta be out there. Of course, before Corona, you gotta be out there. So when I started traveling, when I started wanting to travel internationally to sell, it was very difficult because trying to travel for business with no results or no feedback immediately is extremely tiring and unbelievably expensive. It kind of breaks a lot of people. It makes a lot of people give up immediately because like you travel to a country and meet people today, most probably they will never turn out to be your customers, one. Or if they do, it might take years to convert them into customers. So how do you keep investing in traveling and then, keep moving? It was extremely tough. So what I did was, I would keep flying. First of all, I just want to break down one more thing. At this point, when I started traveling, I realized that our passport doesn't have too much value. And I think most of us have realized. I realized that to go to every country, I got to apply for visas and might get rejected. So because, people from similar countries like us go there and never turn back, and they become a burden to the social security system of most of the developed countries. So they did not treat us fairly, and they did not. There were no fair treatment for somebody with one of the least 25% of the passports, like Sri Lanka. So I didn't want that to stop me. I think most of the young founders will have the same problem. How do you get a visa to US? How do you get a visa to Shenanigan countries when you are just a young founder? Just to give you an answer, like build a brand, keep your finances correctly, save money, right? So the moment an embassy sees a valid reason for your travel, such as a conference or a list of meetings that you have already booked, if you come and say, I'm just going to go in and potentially meet people, nobody's going to give you a visa. And then they would look into your bank account to see, are you really in a position to support yourself? And when I'm a founder, they would ask me for my business account. And I was doing transactions here and there. Revenue was coming in. That was the first hurdle. And then countries started becoming comfortable to give me visas. So when that started happening, I would go into countries, I would go into the co-working spaces, because that's where you meet a lot of young companies who are our potential markets, right? I mean, our core business is services right now. A major part of our revenue comes from helping companies build software and AI and different things. So we are kind of like the tech partners to major companies internationally. So I would go and sit with the open slides and the pitch deck and then the website, and then keep pondering, will somebody come and talk to me? And I would go and tap people on the shoulder and ask them, hey buddy, how are you doing? What are you working on? And then try to pitch what we do. I would work hard and get into conferences and then put up a stall, and nobody would really stop by. Then once I got a little cocky that I printed a banner saying, create your app in just 2 weeks. And then my tech lead was like, again, how the hell are you going to do an app in 2 weeks? If somebody says, let me figure it out. Let's figure it out after somebody comes and asks us. All of these funny things kept moving. I would go into conferences and then tell people about our vision. I would go into places like TechCrunch Disrupt and then meet the fellow founders, company CEOs and heads and directors and the leaders, and I tell them, we are a young startup coming out of a tiny country called Sri Lanka. And then we think we can add a lot of value to your business. We can do this, and then this would give you this much of value. People, some people understand it, some people wouldn't understand it. But I keep moving because I can't rest. I mean, I haven't seen a single result so far. I'm just burning, I'm burning all my life savings and all the revenue that comes in international travels. While in Sri Lanka, I would take a bus to go to office and come back. And then I would have going to, things like Shift in Finland, and try to convince customers, here you go, like we could add this much of value if you give us a chance. And then at some point I started to realize, all right, how do you pitch right to people? How do you pitch to a business founder or a business leader that Root Code Labs can be a great technical partner? And things started working out at some point. We would meet people in conferences internationally, and then sometimes a stall next to us, a startup that's struggling with building technology, would come to us and say, hey, why don't you guys build our software? We are struggling with expanding our team. This became one of our partners. And somebody else would come out for a coffee or a drink later in the evening and be like, hey, you guys are lovely. I mean, I really would like to work with you guys, because you guys seem to be like, understanding our vision, our business vision. Then things started changing, right? And then you go into, co-working spaces, you go into startup events in San Francisco, and somebody asks, hey, why don't you speak to everybody? Like, why don't you do a speech on what you guys are so that people understand you better? Then you tell people what you are. And then people start thinking, oh, okay, cool. I mean, what's your value proposition? You can build a similar technology or a greater technology with no bottleneck. You can push things faster. You can push things with more affordability for a startup. So why not? Let's work together. So that starts happening. And then you start getting visibility gradually. And then you somehow get yourself into, like bigger places like WWDC, where you see from far away from the backseat, like Tim Cook is speaking. And then you get like, oh my God, am I sitting in the crowd where the Apple CEO is talking? And then you come out for lunch and then Tim Cook walks past by, and then you like lose everything that you have in your brain. And you realize that you have actually grown into a point where you have a visibility and exposure into the market that you wanted. And that was the start and the end of our strategy into global expansion. In the process, you will also meet a lot of interesting people. Like I met Kevin in San Jose. So Kevin is a lovely old man and who would tell me stories about, how his childhood crush. I mean, in the second picture, if you look at the screen, how he had a crush on these old actress. And then Kevin would host me every single time I fly to San Francisco, and then he would make me his own sandwich and then pizza, and then we have like lovely conversation. So you meet a lot of interesting people who keep giving you the cultural understanding of how exactly things happen. And as a bonus story, I want to tell you something very interesting. So there was a time, sometimes all these formal tryouts of trying to get business, trying to sell to B2B is not going to work out. I mean, you go for conferences, you go for meetings, you go for startup events, you talk to people, you show people, they are not going to really work out for you. So there was a scenario. I came across this very interesting company in Florida. And the founder was an old gentleman who was very strict about who he works with. And they were spending more than $500,000 a month into building technology. And they have outsourced it to a consulting firm, or more consulting firms, but all of them were based in the US. I, for some reason, badly wanted to get in touch with this guy, and I badly wanted to pitch in my idea, potentially take a small share of the whole his revenue that goes out into consulting, because I was so confident that we can produce the same value for a cheaper price. But getting to him was harder, because previously I've tried similar things, and going and knocking doors of a company asking, I want to speak to your chairman. I mean, you look silly. Nobody's going to listen to you. And calling up the secretary of the chairman and be like, hey, I want to pitch my company to your chairman. Can you give me 10 minutes? I mean, people, sometimes they do, but most of the times they don't. So there were very sneaky practices even that I use, and I really wanted to tell that to you, because most of you founders need to understand it's not easy. It is not easy getting customers and getting attention of big people who actually lead businesses. So I figured out, so I would go to this coffee shop in front of the office, and I would kind of see what's happening. And then I realized that this chairman, the old chairman, he goes to this gym, a very expensive gym next to the office every day. And I was like, he's very relaxed when he goes there, in his shorts and a t-shirt, and he just goes there and runs to the treadmill. And I'm like, all right, cool. So how do I go in? I was there in Florida for only like a week. So I walked into the gym and asked him, hey, I'm out of town. I need a membership for 1 week. can you give me a 1 week membership? And the guy in the counter looked up and down, and the fellow clearly understood that I've never worked out in my life. Then he was like, yeah, cool, it's $400. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, what is that in rupees? It's 80,000 rupees. I was living in a tiny boarding at the time for 6,000 rupees in Malabar, and I was like, that's almost like more than a 1 year rent for me. And I was like, cool, let me do that. I put again all what I had, and then got the 1 week membership. I would go to the gym. I would run in the treadmill, and this guy, let's call him Mr. X, would come and run on the next treadmill, and he would see me, wouldn't care. And the next day I would go there, run and do some exercise. He would come there. The third day he looks at me and he nods, and I nod at him. The fourth day he looks at me and smiles. And then I smile at him. And then the fifth day, we both finish running at the same time and do some cardio. And then we come back with the towel, and he's like, hey, buddy, how are you? You seem to be working very hard. How are things? I said, yeah, I'm good. I'm out of town. I'm just here for some meetings. And then I tell him, yeah, so I'm into business. And he's like, all right, so what kind of business are you into? I'm like, I'm running this consulting firm, a tech startup, and we kind of get very close to international businesses, figure out their technological gap, and we build software for them. And so like it's like you're a technology team, but somebody else is taking the full ownership and taking care of everything. So he was like, oh wow, that's interesting. So why don't you, when you have time, just why don't you come see me? How long are you here for? And I'm like, inside my mind, I'm like crying and laughing at the same time. And I went and met him the next day. And then they turned out to be one of our legendary customers. So what I'm trying to say is, for most of the founders, there is no one way to do this. There is no single way to get customers or to scale up globally. And sometimes you will end up doing things that, like that you might not generally do. But anything that would help you bring business, in my opinion, is fair, because your business would take care of everything going forward. So all of these things took us here. Now, after 6 years, we work with customers, enterprises who are listed in the New York Stock Exchange, to tiny startups budding out of Tokyo, to banks in Sweden, to energy companies in Portugal, to esports companies in Canada. So we have grown purely because everything that I said, the connections that we built, the visibility that we got, and then the places we pushed harder, all of them took us here. Now, things are changing a little from last year, because you can't do the same things anymore. I couldn't do the same thing anymore. But things have changed for better, actually, because everybody is moving online. And inevitably, there is no other option than having meetings online. So that makes it somewhat easy for you, because they are going to feel natural on a video call when you arrange a meeting and pitch. The same way you meet them in person, but you can cut down a lot of cost into entry into markets. But it is also challenging because you lose that human touch. You lose that face-to-face interaction that gives confidence to your customers. So it's a very tricky point, but we got to take advantage of this until the world recovers. And during this whole pandemic phase, we ended up building products as well. For example, we built, when COVID hit, we realized a lot of these people, a lot of these consultants and business people who rely on talking to customers, like lawyers to doctors to like yoga instructors to coaches, mentors, they suddenly don't have access to people face to face. I mean, in last March. And then we just immediately built an app within 2 weeks, working very hard and build like a one-stop video services firm, an app where you can just start from payments to end with the video consultation. Of course, that was an really great in 2 weeks because we built an MVP, but we kept improving and we pitched for competitions like the Global Hack, and we ended up winning out of 12,000 participants. So things like that kind of give you more credibility in the modern era, and we ended up being placed as the #2 product of the day in Product and also, and then all of them brought us the modern day visibility, because if not for COVID, we would have never thought of like participating in a European Union competition or anything like that. And then things like that kind of helped us gain a lot of attention internationally and locally. Locally, media wrote about us. Internationally, like for example, meantime, we have also already built an office in Europe as well, in Estonia. Just right a year before COVID, I realized there is a hindrance going global, which is as a Sri Lankan company, a lot of compliance issues would be there for international firms to work with you. Especially when you deal with big money. So we were about to sign a contract with one of the Northern Europe banks to build one of their quality assurance and banking systems. We realized that there's no way they could handle us. They could work with a Sri Lankan company. So then we realized, all right, so we have to have international presence, like real business presence. So then we ended up incorporating the company in Europe, which is by far one of the biggest entry points into the European Union. And the local media started writing, like Root Code Labs is hiring in Estonia and in Europe in general. And when you win competitions like the Global Hack organized by the European Commission, government started noticing you. So Estonian government started writing about us. They started recommending about us. They started telling people, this is a young startup from Sri Lanka and Estonia. They have a branch here and they are doing really great. So why don't you guys work with you? Every small thing like this turns out takes us here. Every small thing. It's not one major step that took us here. And it would be a lie if I tell you I got lucky. It would be a lie if I tell you, I don't know, just I woke up to this. I shouldn't be here. We shouldn't be here if not for hundreds of right steps in the right direction, big and small. And I believe this sharing this unfiltered, raw story with you, with the young founders like you guys, would absolutely give you a window into how we got here and would help you scale up your business globally. We have a grander vision. Root Code Labs is just 1 out of 6. We have started Root Code AI early this year officially. And we have started investing in smaller firms as well. One of the greater firms that came out was Tracky. And we are doing a lot more things. So this is not the end for us. This is just, like I said, 2 to probably 3% of what we could do. So if there's anything that might be useful from what I said, please take them and then practice, and then let me know if there are any questions. Or during the Q&A, we can have that as well. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity, and hope I was somewhat helpful for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. That was a great story. And thank you for, let's say, sharing it in the raw format it is. And that's a real value of it, in the whole essence of it, where you went into the detail of making it real for the participants who have joined today. Thank you for that raw truth telling and storytelling that you did. So both Lakmini and Alahan has been in this industry and have been growing their business for some time, and they've shared their very inspirational stories. So now to a founder who's very recent, but have grown his business and accelerated his growth. And we're privileged to hear your story, Gobi. So over to you.
Thank you. Before me, there was two ultra legends were telling their story, but compared to them, I'm nothing. I'm going to tell my little story that would help others to start from zero. So the first exposure to the computers was in 2007, before the war. In Kilinochchi, I saw the computer first time in my school, and after that, I went to the home and I was crying to my mother to buy a computer, but that wasn't easy because it was very expensive at that time, and we had no electricity. So that was the first time the computer gave me it was a great thing that I felt that I want to do something with that computer. So after the situation get over in 2009, I went to Vaunia. And then there, I don't even know the name of that person, but he introduced me Google. So I used to go to the internet cafes to browse on Google and things. And the best thing is I started to search how-tos. So how to design, how to blah, blah, blah. So I started doing searching on Google and I started to learn myself. On Google, I found that Apple, Microsoft, and so on. So I wanted to start a company with hundreds and thousands of people, but it's a huge dream at that time. But I want to do something. I didn't want to go to a job, day-to-day job, a government job, as my parents wanted. But I wanted to start a company. And later the reason was becoming a pioneer in Northern Province, because in Northern Province, the parents and the relations and the community itself, they won't encourage us to start a company. They wanted us to go to a bank job and a government job, of course. Still, I think in few days ago, there was my mother's a teacher, so her friend is also a teacher. She came to home, and in few days ago, she was started to advising me to get the bank job. Still, they wanted to go to bank job. So becoming a pioneer in Northern Province means we wanted to get this company bigger, and that way we can inspire more people to become an entrepreneur and start more companies. That would help to leverage this country's economy. That I believe. That was my dream. So the basement was, so as I told you before, there were no encouragements. They even sent me out of class because I spent so much time on the IT lab in the school. So in the community itself, they didn't encourage me, but there was something that my IT teacher, he told me that there's a competition related to IT. You have to go and participate since you are very interested on this field. So first time I went to YAL IT Hub, YAL Geek Challenge Junior in Kilinochchi in 2014, I guess. So I met so many people, like-minded people. To mention, I met Miller Anna. So he found that I interested in UI UX. So he told me there's something called UI UX. You have to search on Google and figure it out, because I designed some sort of small flyers, business card, and so on. So and one business card was like an Android screen, kind of an Android user interface. I designed a business card like that and showed him. So he told me this is called UI UX. So you have to figure it out on Google. So I came home and started to learn about UI UX on YouTube, and then I used Photoshop and small tools to build very ugly user interfaces in the initial stage. The YAL IT Hub, it's changed to me a lot. Without YAL IT Hub, I couldn't get anything. So that's the thing. So yeah, with the YAL IT Hub network, I used to go to each and every event that YAL IT Hub organized. So I went there and met so many people, and then I got the first project. It cost 1,500 rupees. It's a website home-based design. So I designed them and got paid. So that showed me that there must be a way way to make money, because until that time I didn't know that we can make money through doing freelancing work without going to a job at the company. So this gave me very confidence, and it inspired me to do more things. So that I started to design pet projects and post it on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and so on. Then I got then I was getting small project like 5,000 rupees, 10,000 rupees. At the time, it was very big money for me. So I was doing it again and again. So I wanted to get the industrial experience, because in order to start the company, we need industrial experience, shows how industry work, how to talk with clients, how to manage a project, how to hire people, how to make them work together like that. So I met Alagananna. He was speaking with this event before me. So I met Alagananna at Yalati Hub event. So after that, I came home, and I was sending message every day on Messenger to get me an internship after my A-level exam. So I was sending I think hundreds of messages to him. So finally, he offered me a internship opportunity at his company in Colombo. So I went there and worked for around 1.5 years there. And then there I got exposed to the things that I was mentioning about, like how to talk with clients. He let me to talk with clients directly without any preparation. So that kind of things, like it's kind of jumping into a swimming pool without any swimming experience like that. So that kind of experiences gave me a confidence to start a company. So after I got selected to University of Moratuwa, where I'm still studying in the second year. So that 4 years of gap, I still have 2 more years to complete. But that 4 years, I thought it might help me to take risks, because my family members or relations or anybody will not interfere, because within the 4 years they will think that I'm studying at the university, so I can take whatever the risk I want. So I was working in the whole nights on the freelancing projects, like small websites, WordPress sites, and so on. So at that time, the clients were asking, like, if you can develop these user interfaces, that would be very helpful for us, like that. So I didn't have no experience in development. I can't even write a hello world. So I asked my friend Abhisaban to do the development work, and then I was privileged to get the project from LinkedIn, which was worth $1,500 at the time. So it was a huge money for me at the time. So using that money, I hired our first employee. It wasn't Abhisaban, it was another guy. His name is Sajid. So he joined as a full-time employee, and then we got larger and larger projects. And then the one thing we have to notice, like, we didn't have a space in Colombo, and we didn't have enough money to rent out a space in Colombo. So again, I went to Yalati Hub event. I met Jayendananna, who is the CEO of SenseMed. So he offered a small space for around 6 months. He didn't even get any rent or anything, but he even advised me how to run the company, and he gave me a small space. That was a huge thing for me, because it's in this way we saved a lot of money. Instead of going to a co-working space, we saved a lot of money there. So that way you can see the Yalati Hub community helped me from start to end, and then they're still helping us. And after that, Yalati Hub started the accelerator program, which is a 6-month startup accelerator program. Within the 6 months, they assigned me a mentor. He was mentoring for 6 months, and in the last, after at the end of the 6 months, they arranged the investor pitching event, and there we pitched our company and revenue and so on. And we got funded growth capital of $75,000, which is 15 million. And because we got the investment because of before a few months we joined to the Yalati Hub. we went to bankrupt. Like our company bank balance was 20,000 rupees. And after that, I got loan from Jendran and from other relations to fund the company, to pay the salary. And me and Abhishek, we didn't get the 8 months of salary at that time. So this charity of accelerator program gave us a fund that helped us to survive from that bankrupt situation. And then within the 6-month charity of accelerator program, our mentor helped us to helped us to gain knowledge about how to get clients, how to talk with clients, like that kind of mentorship. And again, with our own knowledge in the past projects, we had like a different type of strategies different type of strategies to get more clients. In that way, we are now we had made within the 1 year time period, we were able to make $100,000 in revenue. That's a huge thing from bankrupt situation to this level of growth. We were able to get I believe that's a huge growth for us. And now we have developed and delivered 60 plus projects with 40 plus customers in 18 countries around the world. And this is our so we started from one man, and then Abhi joined, and then we are now 16 people in the company as a full-time employees. And this is our clients, and we got recognition from government entities such as Slascom, Startup SL, and ICTA, and so on. And we have recognized as the best startup in Northern Province by Slascom. That's a quick story of QX Studio. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Gopi, and congratulations on your achievement. And as you mentioned, from being bankrupt, to being a startup who is now earning $100,000 a year. That's a great story, and thank you for that applause as well. So it's if you look at the progression of today, we've heard from Lakshmini, who've been in the business for a long time, have grown a company, just gone global, and have I would say set the benchmark for all product. They're a product. They're a software as a service based company, and a product for all product companies in the country to set a benchmark. And then you saw Alahan, who've let's say maybe half the number of years that Lakshmi has spent on the business, have worked on Root Code Labs and have spread their wings and across the globe. And then coming to Gopi, who have spent, Gopi, how many years have you been in business?
I think 2.5 years.
2.5 years, maybe again less than half than what Alahan has been in business, and now have also grown and hitting a revenue number of 100,000 USD, employing people in the Northern Province. And these are great stories at different levels. So you see there are different levels that you can aspire to. And those who are joining on the call, you will see that anything is possible. If you thought when you listen to Lakshmini, no, so that's not for me, that's too much. And if you listen to Alahan and thought, no, that's again not for me, that's too hard to inspire. But now you heard to Gopi, you have no excuse. There is no excuse. There is no excuse to become a Gopi and to become Alahan and to become a Lakshmini. There is no excuse. It's out there. The opportunity is out there. So let's see the questions. Let's see whether have come in. Yes, one question to Alahan. I'll just read it off. Right, it's all here. How companies should look at employees who is interested in startup because it might be against their company terms. Vinod Khanna, you want to say this out loud? You want to unmute your mic and then just ask Alahan? Your words.
Hi. First of all, thanks to everyone that thanks to ICTA and the mentors to initiate this call, and it's very inspirational stories. Even Lakshmi and Halagan and Gopi, all the stories are very inspirational. And I just wanted to ask Halagan that the person who the employee who is 30 plus and but he wanted to take a risk in risk in his life, and he wanted to do some startups, and how the modern company should look an employee that who is interested in startups, because that might be the most probably that will be the same the startup and the IT field that is going to do something. How the company should look, that they should appreciate, or how that should work in your point of view?
Right. So I think there are two ways to look at it. One is if as an employee, you want to create a business that's slightly or more different from what your actual current company is doing. The other one is, are you going to directly compete with your company? And then the company is going to have a bit of a hard feeling, right? I think some guy in the middle was Gobi when he was working with us. For me, Gobi, I always saw Gobi as somebody who wasn't bound by the whole employee structure, and he has done good work, and I thought he was ready, and the rest of the learning to become an entrepreneur, I can't really give him. So I supported him to start up UX Studio, so I was the happiest. Sometimes you have people in the company who want to create a product so that doesn't directly compete with what we do. Then what we do them in Root Code, we have a Root Code day, incubator pitch day every quarter. So you can pitch your idea to senior members, and if we like it, we will fund you. We will fund the products, and then we will help you build it. So we will be like a part of your growth story, because like you said, one thing I also noticed is there's a subset of people who are not going to be happy as employees when they grow, and they have these entrepreneurial spirits. So rather than just letting them out, why don't we be part of the success? So that's how I look at it. But I do understand, like, if you are going to directly exactly compete as an employee who is going out and start a company, you have the obligation to communicate to your management that I'm not going to have any conflict of interest with our current customers, right? There's not going to be any solicitation from the existing customers, no solicitation for anything that might turn against the current company. And I think as an entrepreneur, you got to be smart enough and powerful enough to go and speak to your management and tell them, all right, so here's what I'm trying to do, but I'm not gonna let that impact anything. So I'm not going to steal the customers or this and that. And I think companies should support with that promise of an exiting employee. And I've done that a few times, and I think that's what we should do.
Thank you, Alan. That's very encouraging.
Okay.
Another question for Alagan, which I will come back to. We have just about 8 minutes more. But an important question from Jintushan: how do you handle failure? So maybe a very quick answer from all three panelists, starting from Lakshmini. How do you handle failures?
So my answer really is failure is part of almost every day. Failure is actually showing us that we are going to a boundary and we have to cross it. So failure is mandatory, actually. If you don't fail, means you haven't done. So that's my simple answer.
Thanks, Lakshmi. Alagan, what are your thoughts? What is failure to you? How do you handle it?
Just learn to have fun.
Program.
I'm sorry, can others mute their mic, please? Thank you.
For me, it's very simple. I learned it over time because I didn't know how to handle failure. What I learned is just learn to have fun dealing with failure. So failure can be a fun, like an enjoyable process if you rewire your mind. And I did that, and I think it became a bliss after that. So just learn to have fun with failure, because like Lakshmini said, I mean, it's inevitable. If you want to grow, you got to fail.
Nice way of thinking about it. So finally, Gobi, you've gone to the
Yeah,
bottom
whenever
and come up. So
whenever I fail, I like always to see opportunities about that one instead of worrying about that failure and always like being sad about the failure. We have to think about the opportunity ahead of us. Like that's what we have done. Otherwise we should be bankrupted by now.
great, thank you for that. Alan, last question to you. Varuna, nice to have you here. Did you ever get any assistance from Sri Lankan embassies overseas when reaching potential partners and getting visa? A question to Alan. Yeah.
Not really, Varun. First of all, great to have you, Varun, here. It has been a long time since I run into you. We actually have not. I think that's something I need to learn and start utilizing. Very recently, I was in a European Chamber event with the Denmark Embassy. That was useful, and I think I should step up my game in that. If you have any suggestions, just drop me a message. I definitely take that up further, because I've heard a lot. Embassies are very supportive, and the ambassadors there are extremely supportive for businesses. So I'm yet to take advantage of the
actually, is something to work around this IOI initiative that has been started earlier. I think Sachindra, if you can work around this area, and there will be a lot of hidden talents that is not touched locally, but maybe within the expat community. So great job.
Of course. Thank you. Thanks for that input. So much in store for actually going to foreign markets and market access. So we will discuss with YAL IT on some of connecting it. I know YAL IT itself is doing that. So maybe time for one more question before we wrap up. If anyone wants to just unmute and ask that.
Sachin, while this is Lakmini, just wanted to make a comment on the foreign embassies. So that's something certainly that has helped us. Like India, we couldn't have done it without the Delhi embassy. So many stories on that, actually. Thanks.
Great. Oh, thank you. Thank you for that input on that. Sorry, should have asked you. So let's say if there are no further questions. So final words of encouragement from the three panelists to the audience. Let's go from bottom to up. Gobi, final words of encouragement.
Thanks a lot for organizing this event. And the final words, don't hear anything that your community says, like go to bank job or go to the government job. Those things, you should focus on your passion and the vision that would take to your destination, even if it take long time.
Thank you, Gobi. That's very, very relevant as I've been told. Alan?
Yeah, accept the fact that we are small in terms of market, and push yourself to go out. Don't get comfortable selling in Sri Lanka, even though it might be very fun. Push yourself, go global. So,
Thank
you for those words. Finally, Lakmini.
Thanks. So it's a little like actually echoing the two of them. Really, anything. Nothing is impossible. So really, these days, my aim is that I see the big players acquiring and looking at Asia. So I would really put ourselves a challenge. Let's see who gets there first. Who's the first 10 companies that get the eyes of Apple and Uber and all these larger companies, and we can certainly do it. That's nothing stopping us. It's just us. We aim, we get it, right? So that's my message to all of you and myself as well.
Thank you for that, and thank you all three of you for setting that example for all of us to follow. Thank you for doing that. If you didn't proceed, if you didn't go in front of us, we won't be able to follow. But someday, I hope those on this call will also beat them, and that's the hope that we have. And on a separate session, working with Sayantan and Sarvesh and ICTA, ICTA will organize, as Varun also mentioned, various support for market access and how we can work together to help everyone get into the export market. Thank you for the well wishes which are coming on the chat thread. I've posted the link to the next forum if you're interested. It's on our new strategy of technology diffusion to many verticals in many industries, agriculture, manufacturing, and it's posted by Dr. Amali from the newly instituted SLIBTech, Sri Lanka Institute of Biotechnology. I've posted the Zoom link. It's also an open link. You can get into it. It starts at 11, and therefore I will wrap up now. Thank you once again to the speakers. I'm eternally grateful to you for being part of this and putting the effort to do the slides. I know you had to do it from scratch due to my request. Thank you for spending that time amid your busy schedule. Thank you for all the participants who trusted us and are still with us. We at one point we hit about 50 participants. Thank you for that, for being part of this. And finally, thank you, Sayantan, team of YALIT, for doing such great work in this ecosystem. If not, we would not be having these stories to say, and as everyone acknowledged throughout, and the other startups who are paying it forward by supporting them, startups who are successful and paying it forward. And that's how we can build a community. Thank you once again, YALIT. More good things to come. And here, on behalf of ICTA, thank you for being part of the Regional Development Program, the Northern Roadshow, and I'm signing off. Have a great day.